thing.
A guy who's perpetuating an ethnic cleansing, going on the podcast of prank video influencers to discuss Burger King is one of the craziest things I've seen in my life.
Yeah. Well, in Israel right now, where they went to perform, Tel Aviv, there's massive protests on the street about what's happening in Gaza. In Israel.
Yes.
Recently, Joe Rogan and Tim Dillon sat down on the Joe Rogan podcast to discuss the truth regarding Israel's genocide in Gaza, the type of coverage it's getting, the type of sweetheart interviews that Netanyahu is getting in the United States, and political corruption in general that pervades the establishment and the ruling class. So let's get their take on this. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
That's right. People are sick of it. They've had enough of it.
500,000 people in Tel Aviv.
Yes.
On the streets.
Yeah. I mean, they want Netanyahu. I think a lot of people have started to, they're seeing the grift here. Netanyahu is he wants this war to go on for decades.
Well, he's been running that country for how long now?
He's been running it a long time. They haven't had elections in a while. He's got this war, this crisis government or whatever they've compiled. I mean, I think it's time to, a lot of people are going, enough is enough.
Well, thank God the Nelk boys got to the bottom of everything.
They got to the bottom of it, and, it was a brilliant... I didn't know how he felt about Burger King. I never knew. And now I do. Well, listen, we have these shows. Everybody has a platform. Everybody wants to be on these shows, and everybody has a line of bullshit. We know it. It's the way it is.
Yes.
It's the way it is. It's unavoidable. You can't avoid it. People get mad. You talk to who? Yeah. It's what it is. You're listening to the thing. Maybe I do a great job. Maybe I do an okay job. Maybe I do a bad job. I don't know. But you're the person listening. You can choose to like it, dislike it. You can say that guy's full of shit. You can say I agree with him there, but I don't agree with him there. You could say I distrust this person. You could say he makes my spidey senses go off. Those are all available. You can have any of those thoughts.
Yeah, and for the record, I'm glad Netanyahu's actually getting interviews in the United States so people can poke holes in his absurd hypocrisy. And yeah, public sentiment is turning against Israel. Even in the United States, you see this more and more happen through the last months. And there are dissidents in Israel protesting this in mass numbers. Last week, there was over 1 million people at a time in a populace of something like 7 million protesting against the Netanyahu regime, against the starvation campaign in Gaza, against this genocide. In Tel Aviv, there were hundreds of thousands of people crowding the streets. It doesn't seem to be enough because polls show something like 75% of the populace there does support this evil regime and what it wants to do and is doing in Gaza. But, that's something, I guess. And, I have to say, it's comedians like Tim Dillon shedding more light on this than the mainstream media and the legacy media in the United States.
And you could also have the thought that you shouldn't be talking to that person.
You can also have the thought that you shouldn't be talking to that person.
Yeah, when people have that thought with
me.
And
that's fair.
Or that I don't push back hard enough, or you're allowed to think all those things. Everybody's allowed to have their own opinions on all this shit.
Everyone's allowed.
But, we're living in the wildest fucking time.
This is the wildest time probably that I can remember. I'm sure there's other wilder times.
Well, I think this is globally the wildest time ever because there's never been a connection like this with everybody and everything.
A guy who's perpetuating an ethnic cleansing, going on the podcast of prank video influencers to discuss Burger King is one of the craziest things I've seen in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. That is true. For those who don't know, Netanyahu went on Nelk Boys podcast and they asked him whether he likes McDonald's or Burger King more. And that is a topic of conversation. And for the record, the Nelk Boys have the right to, ask him whatever questions they want. But we have, a right to push back and, actually criticize that too. Because just imagine if it was Vladimir Putin who was being interviewed, and we have a test case for this, Tucker Carlson. They said he was too warm to Vladimir Putin, of course, like they always will, because they want this war continuing forever. But if it was Vladimir Putin on a podcast being asked if he liked McDonald's or Burger King more, that would be evidence enough to call them a Russian agent, a KGB stooge, all these stupid things. You would be a treasonous individual, but Netanyahu gets a pass every single time. He always has, and he has more or less been in control of Israel for something like 30 years, in and out of power. But even when he was out of power, like in 2002, when he testified in front of Congress and persuaded representatives to vote for the Iraq war, he has power beyond that.
That's
it's
crazy.
also, wasn't there like pre-prepared questions that they had to stick to?
Number one, there were pre-prepared questions. Number two, Burger King does suck. Number three,
I liked them when I was a kid.
They fell off. Wendy's fell off. It was all great.
Wendy's fell off since when?
Wendy's has fallen off so hard. In the 90s, it was one of the best restaurants in the country.
But don't they still use fresh, not frozen? Or is that bullshit now?
Everybody's full of shit. I don't know. It's not good. It's not the same.
I always thought they were the best.
They were the best. In the 90s and the early 2000s, they were the best.
When I was coming home from the comedy store, if I was a naughty boy and I wanted to get some food, and I was like, I gotta get something.
Yeah.
I'm so hungry.
Yeah.
I kind of like Hardee's and Chick-fil-A more, but that's just me. But hey, that's, I guess, a little bit unrelated to the topic here.
That was the move. If there was a Wendy's and a McDonald's, there's no question. I'm going to Wendy's.
I think when you start with the pre-programmed questions and it becomes... It's not an interview. It becomes, because we all know there's interviews, there's good ones, there's bad ones, there's things you wish you'd asked to go, oh, I should have, blah, blah, blah.
It's a bit of a circus.
It's a circus.
Yeah. By the way.
And it's a staged publicity op.
I would have done pre-programmed questions with Kamala. If they had questions, I don't have a problem with those. As long as you give me the So she's willing to.
I'll send you the questions.
So these are the questions. As long as it's pertinent, like these are the questions.
You could have given her 30 pre-programmed questions and 2 months to prepare, and it would have been a mess.
That's my thought.
It would have been a train wreck either way.
It would have been
any 3-hour podcast with Kamala Harris was destined to be a train wreck, whether they were preordained, pre-orchestrated questions or not. But it's interesting to see Joe say that, knowing that he had reached out. He wanted to do an interview, but not within any kind of parameters that were acceptable to a type of show that Joe Rogan has. But yeah, Netanyahu getting pre-programmed, pre-written questions makes it a propaganda op more than an actual interview, seeking the truth, being inquisitive, trying to find the right answers. And I'm surprised actually at some of the questions that Trigonometry gave him, and Trigonometry are fanatically supportive of Israel, especially Konstantin Kisin. And, he even asked him about his support for Hamas, which actually blew my mind, but we know that this was orchestrated. They had talked about it in advance. He had a means to prepare. He didn't give a good answer, so I still think it looked bad. And I'm glad he's being put on the spot even by warm podcasts that ask him relatively and quasi-difficult questions, even if they're orchestrated. It just smacks Americans in the face to see these absurd answers where he can't get away from it.
A lot of fun.
This kid from Subway Takes or whatever in New York City, this guy who does these Subway interviews, just said we didn't put out the Kamala Harris one. It was so bad.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Literally just come out and said, we didn't want to tank her chances. It was terrible. She had this weird answer that made no sense, and we didn't put it out. Wow. I mean, that's the thing that a lot of people talk about. D.C. is this hotbed of like everyone in Congress and a lot of people, in the Senate, Congress, White House, whatever. They're all mixed up in these weird shenanigans.
Well, didn't you just have Marjorie Taylor
We're having
Greene?
her on soon. Yeah, it's coming out soon.
Having her on soon.
She talks about that a lot.
Yeah. Well, do you remember the D.C. Madam case?
They got rid of her. Deborah Jean Palfrey.
What happened to her?
Dead.
How inconvenient.
So sad. Unfortunate.
Super unfortunate that a lady who was bringing prostitutes to all these powerful people wound up dying after she said that she was going to reveal who was on the list.
But that, again, is the... Now think about that. And Epstein is that times 100 because now it's international.
Yeah.
Now you have leaders of all... Like, we've got our congressmen, senators.
Well, you went from millionaires to billionaires.
Millionaires to billionaires.
That's the difference.
That's right.
The congressman, I mean, even Nancy Pelosi, that pauper.
Yeah.
What, she's worth a paltry $400 million?
She's nothing. In the grand scheme of things, she's nothing. She's just an ordinary crook.
Yeah.
And respect to her and her husband for all his returns. 54% or whatever.
More.
Killing it.
Pretty amazing.
Killing it.
Yeah, killing it indeed. She's an establishment stooge that never saw war she didn't want to support, never saw corporate welfare that she didn't want to support, never saw debt spending that she didn't want to support. She's an establishment stooge, and it's funny when I hear, Republican activists say, she's far left, she's extreme left. No, she's liberal establishment to the core, just like most of those stooges like Gavin Newsom and all those train wrecks. So that's what you have with Nancy Pelosi. She is indistinguishable in my mind in many ways from people like Lindsey Graham and people like Mitch McConnell, but maybe for a few differences in terms of social issue policies that, the regime doesn't exactly care that much about us squabbling over. But when it comes to the question of whether war should be ended or whether we should stop this central bank printing spree or the debt spending spree, they do care, clearly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why...
Why marry that old witch if you can't get your beak wet?
Because she's got some big yabos.
But you know what I mean? She does have big yabos. But she's another... Why don't they give her a head? She's got that money.
She's a new head.
Get a head.
Well, I think she doesn't want to do it now because she doesn't want people to not recognize her.
That's true.
Because if you're Kris Kardashian...
Yeah.
And you're wandering around now?
I would not know her. If I saw her in Beverly Hills,
right.
I would not know who that is.
Kelly Osbourne? Who's that?
Who knows?
That's not the lady from that show that I used to watch when I was a kid.
No, it's completely a different person.
Yeah. She's hot now.
Is there a possibility there's a Jeffrey Epstein walking around that we don't know who it is?
Is it possible that Jeffrey Epstein didn't die in his cell? And that's all
I was told
horseshit?
by someone who, and this is probably ridiculous, but they said there is a possibility that Epstein is... Les Wexner's got that big house in Ohio.
He's there?
Somebody said it's a possibility, a tiny one, that he's living at Les Wexner's house in Ohio.
If that was true, there would be like...
No,
there
I'm
would be
not
a
sick.
service that delivers masseuses.
Yeah, for the record, these theories are far beyond what I believe about Epstein. I believe he was killed. The circumstances revolving around his death are still murky, but he was probably killed because of what he knew, because, he was disposable at that point to security and intelligence agencies. But it is true, we know this, that federal authorities did not search Epstein's Ohio property, the one that Les Wexner gave him. Les Wexner also gave him his Manhattan property that was valued at $77 million inextricably for, being his money manager. I guess every money manager in the country, is going to get that kind of mansion for working for someone like Les Wexner. But
of course,
house.
Yeah.
There's no way that guy's stopping
They'll
doing
shut their
creepy
mouth.
shit.
Here's the other thing. They'll shut their mouth. Because it's very easy. There's obviously the abuse is horrific. But I guarantee there are people that would still shut their mouth.
Yes.
You could find them.
Yeah, I'm
you
sure.
could find them.
Well, I think that's the whole idea behind this. And this is what Eric Weinstein said to me.
Yeah.
He said, I believe that there are people that curate experiences for people that are very high profile and very wealthy.
That's right, which what I'll be doing in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and Abu Dhabi the night before. Get your tickets
You're
now,
doing
Tim
Abu
Dillon.
Dhabi the night before?
The night before to warm up. October.
Whoa.
I'll be in October. Abu Dhabi, October 6th, and then Riyadh, October 8th, and October 7th, the day of rest and remembrance.
Wow.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Bringing...
Well, yeah, man, Tim Dillon, he's hilarious, man. I think he's the greatest, but it is kind of comical, and maybe not comical, but maybe kind of sad in a way, that our society is given more truthful information about what's actually happening in the world and the weird dynamics, like, yes, Netanyahu being on the Nelk Boys talking about Burger King, that a comedian gives us more truth and sees oddities like that amongst a sea of establishment lunacy and exposes that. And he's a comedian. And we get better information from the comedians than the liberal establishment and the conservative establishment, the Washington status quo, the uniparty, the legacy media, whatever you want to call it. And Dave Smith, too. He's a comedian that sheds light on the truth regarding Israel and the Israel first mentality and the genocide in Gaza. But yeah, Netanyahu, go on as many shows as you want. I don't care. I don't even care if they're all friendly shows, because your propaganda isn't going over. Americans are rejecting it more and more. It hasn't panned out in terms of a political victory against AIPAC and against the Israel lobby, but I do think it's happening more and more because they can't contain the truth. They can't contain what Netanyahu and people within his administration like Smotrich and Katz are saying about their plans for Gaza, about the Greater Israel Project, about the annexation and occupation of Gaza. They can't get away from what they've already said, and all the contradictions are just too glaring, especially when it's aimed toward an administration that just looks the other way at this madness and preaches America first, when he's putting America down the drain by supporting Israel at all costs on everything, and now is flirting with regime change in Venezuela. Really? America first? You have the brazen gall to still repeat America first after following this line of foreign policy, when it would be in a normal relationship that wasn't coerced or led or controlled by the Israel lobby. You could threaten to withhold aid. Maybe do that. Unless you stop killing people indiscriminately in Gaza, women and children that we know are pulled from the rubble. You can say that's all Hamas, all you want, but the people looking at this see it very differently. But that's where we're at. Let me know down below, are Joe and Tim right about the genocide in Gaza, about the dynamics in our political culture and our media culture with Netanyahu and the softball interviews he's been given? Let me know in the comments down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, also subscribe to Joe Rogan. Great interview. Tim's hilarious. I think he's the greatest. And please consider becoming a YouTube member. If you click the join button below, you can help support the channel. And in return, I'll give you access to all my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.